Thank you so much for that incredibly kind introduction, President Fox. That was a special trip. And if you saw the etching that I was doing, it was for Lieutenant Fearon, whose name we called this morning, among the five. I had gone down there because I thought it was the right thing to do, and I had met Lieutenant Fearon's widow early on in my time as Attorney General. And the bond that you develop with the family, it's hard for me to express in words to them the appreciation I feel for the dedication of their loved ones who we've lost in the line of duty. And I thought it was important for me to visit the memorial and to etch the names of all the fallen troopers over the last 3 or 4 years that have been added, and there were a total of 5. So I thank you for sharing that with the membership. It was truly a special day. So I have the unenviable task of being the designated hitter, the fourth speaker here, to clean up after Prosecutor Tyner, Senator Brown, and Deputy Chief Sarkos. And I hope I do well this morning because I'm also throwing the first pitch out at the Trenton Thunder game this evening, and I know that could be sort of a daunting task. So if anyone has any tips on successfully throwing a pitch or a strike from 60 feet 6 inches, I'd take any tips off to the side.
Give it all you got.
Give it all you got? They actually told me to hold back a little bit. In any event, President Fox, Prosecutor Tyner, Deputy Chief Sarkos, and to you, the members of the Fraternal Order of Police, New Jersey State Lodge, it really is a privilege to be here with you this morning. I want to thank President Fox for inviting me to this, your biennial conference. But I especially want to thank each of you, the membership. I want to thank each of you for your service. You see, as a former federal prosecutor, as a former county prosecutor, and now as Attorney General, I know firsthand the challenges, the risks, and the demands that you, our law enforcement professionals, face each and every day you put on your uniforms. And that's what I'd like to discuss with you this morning, those challenges, those demands, those risks, and my role as Attorney General in helping you meet them. Prosecutor Tyner alluded to this earlier. I know full well that today you are being asked to do so much more. You're being asked to do so much more with so much less. Today you're being asked to do more than to ensure public safety. You're being asked to do more than simply maintain law and order in this state. You're being asked to serve as mentors, as mental health counselors, as substance abuse counselors, as big brothers and big sisters, as marriage mediators, and even at times community relations experts in the midst of a crisis. And despite all of these challenges, despite all of these demands, of course, you've all stepped up. You've stepped up not just to fill these vital roles, but also so many more. You've been keeping our roadways safe while teaching our children about pedestrian safety. You've been combating illegal street crimes and gang activity while also helping to offer our young people with alternatives to the streets. You've been reviving overdose victims while at the same time talking to them about getting into treatment. And you've been aiding the victims of domestic violence, of human trafficking, and so many other forms of abuse while also helping so many other victims in need. And then, of course, there's all those things that you do behind the scenes that are out of the public eye. Those daily interactions when you might stop on patrol to talk to a young person. Again, you are doing so much. But here's the thing, you do all of that knowing full well that your job is so inherently dangerous. That according to one recent study that I looked at, as a law enforcement professional, you are 3 times more likely to be injured at work than in any other profession. That you put your lives on the line each and every day by simply putting on your uniform and badge, by showing up to work, by responding to the most routine call, because the harsh reality is that you never know where that next threat will come from. And regrettably, as we saw in the video and has been alluded to earlier this morning, line of duty deaths continue to claim too many law enforcement officers each and every year. In 2017, there were 129 line-of-duty deaths across the United States. Through August 18th of this year, there have been 90. That's up 5% from the same time last year. And 38 of those 90 have involved some form of firearms. That's up 31% from the same time last year. And in New Jersey, over the past 4 years, regrettably, we've lost 14 law enforcement officers in the line of duty. And if all of that weren't enough, you're doing all of these things against a backdrop, really in a climate where your every move is being scrutinized on social media or in the press, where sometimes out of context cell phone videos that only capture a portion of a police interaction are used to improperly define, actually malign really, an entire profession. This, what I just described, this is the incredibly complex and demanding environment in which each of you are called upon to execute your law enforcement mission. So as Attorney General, one of my top priorities, one of my primary responsibilities really is supporting law enforcement in this state, to support each of you in executing your mission safely and effectively in the environment that I just described. And I'm committed to doing that in a number of ways. I'm committed to doing that by increasing collaboration across law enforcement to address some of the challenges I just outlined. I'm committed to doing that by increasing collaboration with our federal partners. I'm committed to doing that by leveraging those same partnerships, as we have already this year, to address violent crime, to address gangs and drug trafficking in this state. And I'm committed to doing that by fostering collaboration among mental health professionals, treatment providers, and other stakeholders through our newly formed NJ Cares, an office that's designed to comprehensively address and attack the opioid crisis in this state. And I'm committed to doing that also by working tirelessly with and collaborating with all stakeholders to improve police-community relations in every corner of this state. And most importantly, I'm committed to supporting law enforcement in this state in executing this mission safely and effectively by working with this organization, by always having an open and honest dialogue with the FOP, and by being available and always ready to hear your concerns. And I think you've already seen some of this in some of the directives that we've put in place. Those directives, they're aimed at promoting not just community trust, but law enforcement safety. And here's the thing, regardless of whether it was our directive on early warning systems, random drug testing, or the release of video footage in use of force situations, every one of those directives was made in collaboration with law enforcement groups. None of those directives were formulated in isolation, and they will never be formed that way. They'll never be formed in a vacuum without the input of this organization and other law enforcement organizations. Now, I use the term collaboration a lot, and I've used it a lot this morning. But let me just share with you, in closing, what I mean by collaboration. You see, I think our definition of the term collaboration has changed over time. Perhaps it's expanded. And I think it's had to, because I think the definition of success for law enforcement has changed as well. In a latter day, in an earlier time, the measure of our success tended to be pure numbers. How many arrests did we make? How many pounds of cocaine did we seize? How many weapons did we confiscate? How many indictments and convictions did we obtain? But over time, we've come to recognize that racking up impressive arrest and anti-crime statistics is not enough. Formidable gun seizure data isn't going to make people feel safe when they're afraid to go downtown without fear of being carjacked. Arrest numbers aren't going to make people feel more secure if they can't sit on their front porch without fear of being shot. And news stories about large quantity drug seizures aren't going to reassure parents and family members who are losing loved ones to overdoses? Do we still have to make it a priority to put bad actors away, to get their guns, to get their drugs, to get their fellow gang members and criminal associates off the streets? Absolutely we do. But we have to do much more. Today, we, really each of you in this room, have to help change attitudes. We have to help change cultures. And we have to help change lives. And this is where I think that term collaboration takes on a new direction. And that new dimension and direction involves police agencies not only collaborating with each other on an unprecedented level, but also with outside entities as well. Community groups, the courts, medical professionals, academia, social service providers, the clergy, and many other stakeholders. You see, for too long and across too large a segment of our population, that cycle of truancy, dysfunctional home life, poor educational outcomes, juvenile crime, adult crime, incarceration, and reoffense has gone unbroken. The simple fact is that if we want safer communities, communities in which people can feel secure in their homes and walk the streets without fear of victimization, part of the answer must be to change this reality, to break that cycle I just described through new ways of coming together. And what I'm saying is nothing new. It's what everyone in this room already knows. And the prosecutor alluded to it, but it's more broad than the drug epidemic we're facing. We are never going to incarcerate our way out of the crime problem, period. Going forward, we must seek alternatives to simply arresting people, warehousing them, releasing them once they've paid their debt to society, and making room for them behind bars once they've reoffended. Working together, we have to break this cycle of misery. We must cut off the flow of defendants into our system on the front end and on the back end. And that involves both new ways of thinking and new ways of collaborating. And there are many organizations and communities throughout New Jersey who are working with at-risk teens and young adults, addicts and ex-offenders, in an effort to change lives and give the opportunity to people for better outcomes. Law enforcement is and needs to remain a significant partner in these efforts. And as Attorney General, I want to help you fill that role, to help facilitate that collaboration. And folks, these are not just empty talking points. I've already shared with you some of the initiatives we put into place over the last 7 months. But let me just share with you a recent example, an example of what could and should be done by each of us in this room. Just last week, right here in Atlantic City, I joined law enforcement and public officials. I joined Deputy Chief Sarkos, Chief White, Prosecutor Tyner. And we met with dozens of community partners. We met with their coalition for a safe community. And we gathered in a church in Pleasantville, not too far from here, to talk about community concerns, to talk about law enforcement concerns. And we also discussed solutions to problems. That church meeting, that simple church meeting, is the essence of community policing. And those types of meetings help build trust. They promote mutual understanding. And they do help create safer communities. But our efforts didn't end at that simple meeting. That same night, we participated in a community walk through some of the tougher neighborhoods in this city. Walking around and meeting residents, interacting with the community outside of a law enforcement operation, having honest and open conversations with citizens on a summer night. It doesn't get simpler than that. It doesn't require fancy task forces or agreements or planning committees or mobility assignments. It's just simply walking the streets. It's what you do every day. It's meeting people. It's talking to them. It's understanding their concerns. And it's as simple as that. And these small, little positive interactions, these small meetings and encounters, they add to that reservoir of trust and credibility that each of you carry and were really given when you entered this noble profession. And unlike those out-of-context cell phone videos I talked about, you define these positive interactions. You define what they look like to the community. and they help build trust between law enforcement and the community, not just here in Atlantic City that night, but throughout the state. So if there's anything I leave you with, I encourage you to leave this meeting, to leave this conference, and engage in those types of small positive interactions, to make those little deposits into that reservoir of trust and credibility that'll help the next generation of police officers coming behind you to execute their mission safely in an environment filled with community trust and understanding. So let me just close by echoing what the prosecutor said and what the other speakers have said this morning. I'm here, and I was shocked to learn that there hasn't been an Attorney General here in 70 years. I'm here to support the FOP. I'm here to tell you that I value your input. I'm here to tell you that I will always be ready to hear your thoughts. I can't guarantee that we're going to see eye to eye in every situation, but I can guarantee that you and other law enforcement organizations have and will continue to have a seat at my table when we make those decisions that impact this profession. Once again, I want to thank President Fox for inviting me here this morning. I want to thank you for listening to me with your attention undivided, and I look forward to many more discussions and many more successful collaborations with this organization in the years to come. Thank you so much, and please stay safe.